Hey everyone, this is JF Richards here, and I'm here to tell you that an additional thing I'll be doing on this channel is I'll also be doing book recommendations for those who may be interested in reading specific books. For this video, I'm going to be talking about Sodor, Reading Between the Lines by Christopher Awdry. What this book is mostly about is it answers a lot of questions about the Railway series, one of the most popular children's books of all time, that has been popular for the last 80 years or so, and has been popular on television with Thomas and Friends. For those of you who don't know who Christopher Awdry is, he is the son of Reverend Wilbur Awdry, who happens to be a religious cleric, but also he is also a railway enthusiast. He also knows the basics and the rules of all locomotives, and more importantly, wanted to focus on what each of his books would be about. The most notable thing that most people don't pay attention to is people think Thomas is a kid's show, and you think it's meant for kids. Well, to be fair, it's not exactly meant for kids. There's more to Thomas that most people don't even realize. In fact, a point of fact, Thomas wasn't actually the first character created. That was Edward. One thing I will point out is that what this book has, it reveals so many different things about the Railway series that most people don't pay attention to, like why certain characters are the way they are, like why Thomas has a 1, why each of the characters had specific things happen to them. Because some of the stories, each of them have a basis in real life, such as a real world reference, and they also happen to have events that parallel real events that actually happened in real life. Like here's one story, for example. The story, like Down the Mine. It's a story about Thomas getting into trouble by collapsing into a mine shaft. It may have been a lot simpler for Thomas, but in real life, this actually happened, and many other events that have happened in real life. They all provided sort of a basis for Thomas and his friends. So far, what most people don't even realize is that sometimes you got to look more than just what the pictures tell us. Because in here, there's more to this book than meets the eye. In fact, there's always more to the story that people don't even pay attention to, such as there are some characters that are actually a real world reference to major characters. In fact, Scarloey and all of his friends on their railway, they were actually based on the locomotives and diesel that were actually on the Tallaght Railway. And most people don't always understand how the characters are. Sometimes if you've watched the show, you may think it's more simple, but there's more to it. In fact, the show actually sort of fixes stuff that actually happens in the books, and sometimes it follows a different continuity to how things are in real life. But there's always something interesting. sometimes you'll learn more about each character, or if you pay attention. Hmm. And in fact, if most people even paid attention in some episodes, or even if you haven't read the books, there is a man who is known as the Thin Clergyman, when in reality, when that character is actually the author himself, or should I say, his in-universe character. There are many things about the story he's that have. In fact, most people don't even realize that even though the author has wrote the books, and also another thing I will point out is that Wilbur may have wrote the first 26 books, but his son took up the role, took up the head of as the author after. By starting with book 26, being the last one, Christopher took over as the author at the helm, and he pretty much had been the author ever since, until the book ended its series run back in 2011. But even today, the show resonates with so many people. I, in particular, have been a huge fan of Thomas since I was a kid. In fact, I didn't even know Thomas was even a book character until I actually had read the books myself. And mostly, there's always something more important that most people don't ever pay attention to. Is that there was always things that people always tend to underestimate about this stuff, because this book shows more stuff that people don't even pay attention to, such as, like, why is Thomas blue, or what does the NW on the brake van stand for, or where does the name Sodor come from? Or even some questions about the TV show. What did your father think of Ringo Starr? Or how did he meet Britt Allcroft? And because mostly this thing tells about questions about the characters, and even the very books that began the whole story, such as The Three Railway Engines, which was the very first book ever published. And most people would think, wait, isn't Thomas supposed to be in that book? Well, here's the thing: he wasn't introduced until book 2. I always thought this book would have a lot more information about it, and it turns out I was right. Like, because I had mostly spent the last several years learning more about the author himself, because I always wonder what he always thought of these things, and he even also helped show parallels in real life, such as the introduction of diesel locomotives and how steam engines may not be useful as much. And also here's some pictures of the author himself. I mean Christopher Awdry, not Wilbur. Each of them show different things, such as the original old Thomas toy that inspired the very blue engine, and even others. There's so much more to these things. And there's always so many wonderful stories. There's always going to be something more. And even more so, this even has a few notes and drafts for even an original sketch drawn for the first book. And here's even a letter that Wilbur himself wrote to his son. Dear Christopher, here's your friend Thomas the Tank Engine. He wants to come out of his station yard and see the world. These stories tell you how he did it. I hope you will like them because you helped me to make them. Your loving Daddy. And mostly, I kind of say if I had to review this book out of a 5-star rating, I would say definitely a 5 out of 5 because this is definitely a book for anyone who's a huge fan of Thomas or anyone who is a train fanatic. And there's always more you can learn about stuff if you actually learn their history. Because as much as I love of the franchise, there's always more to it than many people will tend to see. And as Thomas would say, little engines can do big things. All right. You feel free to like, subscribe, and check out more of my channel. I'll be doing more videos on books I've been reading, and I will also consider recommending other books that people should read as well. Later.